What's going on, guys? Luke here with Wilson Auto Detailing, and in this video I want to give you a step-by-step in-person pre-detail checklist that I developed many years ago and that has stayed relatively simple that I still use today, and explain to you why these things are on the checklist and why I developed the checklist in the first place. So if you are a professional detailer, you know that you can in some ways get yourself into a situation where if you don't communicate well enough on the front end with a customer about the specific detail or their specific car, sometimes, and it's rare, but sometimes you run into that customer who post-detail looks at things and says, hey, wait a second, I didn't see this before. I didn't see this before. You're the one who ruined this part of my car. Now you have to pay for it. Now, while liability insurance and all different types of detailing specific insurance is available for covering things like that, assuming you can't get yourself out of a pickle like that, and it's important to have that because it's relatively cheap, and, well, when you're seeing enough customers, it only makes sense to be hedged against that liability. I developed an in-person pre-detail checklist that I go through with any new customer, not with maintenance customers, but with new customers, and I want to give you exactly what it is. I always do a simple exterior walk around before I start with the interior. So my exterior checklist goes like this: glass, chips, and crack repair, basically. So are there any cracks or chips in the glass or significant chips in the paint? Okay, not just any chips, but more significantly. I'm looking for significant paint removal, significant paint transfer, significant paint scratches, dents, dings, missing material, detached pieces, significant trim scratches, brake dust, corrosion, curb rash, and any broken pieces that I can easily identify on the exterior. Now that is only around, let's just say, a little bit north of 10 items. Some of you may have a longer list than that, or some of you may be told to have a longer list than that. I want to go through a couple of these and explain why I've done it this way and why it's very helpful to do it this way. Let's start at the top and say glass chips or glass cracks. The reason why I actually create like its own category for glass is because glass is one of those things where, again, it took me just doing this and talking to people for a long time to realize this. It was not this was not obvious to me in the beginning of my detailing business, but what ended up happening is after a detail, people were so used to windshields and windows being dirty that when they were crystal clear, anything that was wrong with the window, particularly a crack, they were immediately texting me saying, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. And then you're kind of in this weird situation where you're like, well, yeah, that's pretty common, right? Things are really easy to see now. And specifically on the windshield, where there would be a tiny crack where they were on the interstate, a little rock hit it or something like that happened. And I wanted to make sure I highlighted that on the front end. And so when I go through this checklist, if I checked any of these things off, if I saw a simple glass crack, I would take a picture of it with my phone. My phone would automatically timestamp that picture, and I would send a folder of those pictures, and there are generally very few, maybe 4 to 7 pictures. I would send those before I ever started the detail to the customer. Okay, so if you're not using a software where some of these things can be kept in their own folder and documented, this is the easiest way to do it, and in the beginning stages of your business, there's no reason to do it any other way. Check it off the list, send it to the customer before you ever get started. So now there's a picture that is proof, and it's timestamped before you ever started the detail that these things existed. Okay, so glass cracks are very easy to see, specifically on the windshield, after, and most people did not see them before, okay? The reason why in the next 3 categories, paint removal, paint transfer, and paint scratches, I include the word significant before it is because you could very easily go down a very deep, dark rabbit hole writing down or checking off paint removal, paint transfer, paint scratches over the entirety of the car if it's a car that's driven on a daily basis. And so there has to be a threshold under which you don't document these things. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting everybody's time, okay? Dents and dings, these, even if they are minimal, I will still take a picture of them. One of the things I've noticed with dents and dings is it's really important to make sure you take a picture of them from the side, depending on what kind of color paint you're working on. I know it sounds simple, but again, it's something that I've run into problems with if I did not do it. If you take a picture of a dent or a ding head on to document the fact that it's there before you even get started, sometimes, based on the way the light is reflecting, it's more difficult to see those things because they're concave, they're dented into the surface itself, so you got to take the picture from the side, okay? Missing material, detached pieces. Okay, missing material and detached pieces. The reason why I say that is because I know it sounds crazy, but you have no idea how common it is to be detailing, and you don't even notice it as the detailer. But for example, this is a car that's maybe 10 years old, they've driven on a daily basis. They're missing, for example, the emblem, or they're missing a letter to one of the emblems, or they're missing the sticker on top of an emblem that makes the emblem look like the emblem. And you don't notice it until you're done, but they notice it when you're done, and they're thinking, hey, why does that look weird? Why is that letter missing? Why is that? Like, obviously, you must have done this. You're the one washing the car. You're the one using the pressure washer. And so I know it sounds crazy, but when the whole car's dirty, they're not thinking about it. And then all of a sudden when it's clean, they're like, wait a second, there's an L missing from this emblem. Like, where did that go? And you're like, dude, that's been missing for like 8 years. How did you not see that? But again, missing material, detached pieces. Significant trim scratches. This is one that, again, has made its own category on my checklist because Significant trim scratches are something that can be covered by dirt, and you don't know that they're covered by dirt. Black trim is actually a relatively finicky surface, depending on how porous or non-porous it is, and that's generally the two categories that I distinguish between when I'm dealing with black trim. When you clean something off of black trim, you'll often realize that it has been stained, okay? Black trim is very easy to stain from road tar or things like that. And so, in the same way that the lower rocker panels of a vehicle are very easy to stain or to oxidize because they just get the brunt of everything, black trim in some ways is even more finicky than paint. And so I take special note of those lower rocker panel black trim areas. Brake dust, corrosion, and curb rash. The reason why I take note of these things is because brake dust corrosion is one of the most common areas of damage that customers don't understand. I want to repeat that. It's one of the most common areas of damage that customers don't understand. So if you don't talk about it on the front end, I have noticed that it always comes up, or it often comes up on the back end. Again, some of these things are only learned by experience. I would not have known in the beginning of my detailing business that oftentimes people are like, hey, why is there so much brake dust on the inner barrel of my wheel, you know? And you're like, well, because that's actually permanent now because it's eaten into the metal, okay? There's no more clear coat left. There's no factory clear coat left on this wheel, right? Or on the inner barrel at least. So at best we can detail the face. And even if you wanted me to go after the inner barrel, it's not a good idea because now it's going to look splotchy because you've got some corroded areas, some not, and it looks strange after cleaning it, okay? Curb rash is another area that I always take a picture of, even though it's rarely something that a detailer would be blamed for unless the detailer is actually the one moving the vehicle. Often, once again, people don't really see it until they're up close and personal, so I just check it off the list. And finally, broken pieces. Again, sounds obvious that people would know, hey, there's a broken piece of black trim or chrome, but this Mini Cooper is a really, really good example because this is a maintenance client that I've detailed for a very long time, but the chrome piece actually finally came off on the front after a while. This becomes very common with vehicles that are driven for 10 plus years. Things start to fall apart. I always keep a log in my mini CRM of all of these things, and even if it's a maintenance client, I'm going to check it off the list, even if I'm not going through my checklist every single time I get in touch with a maintenance client's vehicle. Those are the exterior things that I specifically think are important for you to take note of. And again, there are the things that I would not have known intuitively unless I would have experienced some different tension with different customers, and that actually made me add them to the list. Once again, I think this is a good working list for you to start with, and you can modify it because it does need to become your own. But the key in creating a checklist is keeping the simple things simple and keeping kind of the North Star the North Star. Don't overdo it where you start going into everything. It becomes counterproductive at that point. So you got to figure out what are the primary things I need to keep track of, and how do I keep the main thing the main thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you got some value here, make sure to comment below and let me know. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to grab the full list of tools and products that I suggest as a pro detailer, I don't sell any of these products. None of them are mine. These are just the things that I suggest you get at a discount in my resource called the Pro Detailing Toolbox, listed below. Remember, a great detailer is always learning, and from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, I will see you guys in the next video.